Have you ever felt that tightness in your chest when you realize you've lost control of your own thoughts? Sei Shōnagon knew exactly why this happens, and the answer will change how you view your anxiety. In the 11th century, a Japanese court lady named Sei Shōnagon wrote about something that still haunts us today: the feeling of losing control over what happens within us. She wasn't talking about anxiety as we know it, but she perfectly described that moment when your mind becomes your own enemy. What if I told you that anxiety doesn't arise from the outside world, but from the chaos we create within ourselves when we lose control of our own being? Internal control as a necessary illusion. I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is check if I'm still myself. It sounds strange to say that, but it's true. I touch my face, feel my body, and mentally check. Are my thoughts where I left them? Are my emotions organized? Is my sense of identity intact? It's a silent ritual. Perform unconsciously, because deep down, I need to believe I'm in control, that I'm the captain of this ship called me. But Sei Shōnagon, back in the 11th century, already knew something that took me decades to understand. This control I think I have over myself is, at best, a well-constructed illusion. And at worst, it's a lie we tell ourselves just to get out of bed. Sei Shōnagon lived in the Japanese imperial court, a place where every movement was choreographed, every word weighed, every glance interpreted. She wrote The Pillow Book, a work that blends everyday observations, lists of things that pleased and disturbed her, and profound reflections on human nature. But what fascinates me most about her is not her elegant descriptions of landscapes or ceremonies. It's when she lets slip those cracks in her own armor, when she admits that something disturbed her for no apparent reason, that her heart reacted in a way her mind disapproved of, that she felt uncomfortable in. Situations where she should have been comfortable. In those moments, she reveals something fundamental. Even in a society obsessed with external control, the inner self remained wild, untamed, mysterious even to herself. I used to believe my anxiety was a result of external circumstances. The approaching deadline, the bill I needed to pay, the conflict I needed to resolve. And when I finally resolved these things, I expected the anxiety to disappear like smoke. But it didn't disappear. It just changed shape, found new disguises, new justifications. That's when I realized my anxiety didn't come from the outside world. It came from my relationship with what happens inside. From the exact moment I realized I didn't completely control my thoughts, that they arose without my permission, that they multiplied against my will, that they took me to places I didn't want to go. The anxiety wasn't about the world being chaotic. It was about me being chaotic and realizing it. Shōnagon describes, in one of her lists, the things that make the heart beat faster. Among them are simple situations, passing by someone you admire, hearing a well-told story, witnessing something beautiful. But she also lists moments of apprehension, when you await an important answer, when you realize you've said something inappropriate, when you feel you've lost control of a social situation. What she was describing, unknowingly, was the constant oscillation between feeling in control and realizing that this control is illusory. Her heart beat faster, not only because of the fear of external judgment, but because of the acute awareness that she could not completely control how she would react internally to that judgment. This is anxiety in its purest form. The terror of inhabiting a body and a mind that act partially independently of our conscious will. And here's the cruel irony I learned the hard way. The more you try to regain that inner control, the more it slips away. The more you strive not to think about it, the more you think about it. The more you demand that your anxiety disappear, the stronger it becomes. Sei Shōnagon lived in an era where control was supreme, but she was wise enough not to pretend she possessed it completely. She observed, recorded, accepted the contradictions. I, on the other hand, spent years fighting myself, trying to be an efficient inner tyrant until I realized I was at war with an enemy that was part of me. Inner control is not just an illusion. It's a necessary illusion to function, but fatal if taken to extremes. And anxiety? It's merely the price we pay when that illusion crumbles and we're forced to face the truth. We've never been completely in control, and perhaps never will be. The mind as hostile territory. I remember exactly the moment my mind became a strange place for me. It was an ordinary afternoon. I was driving, and out of nowhere, an intrusive thought flashed through my head like lightning. I won't describe it here because the content doesn't matter. The feeling does. It was as if someone had invaded my mental home and left a disturbing message on the living room wall. I didn't choose this thought. I didn't invite it. It simply appeared, vivid and disturbing, and no matter how hard I tried to expel it, it stayed there, echoing, multiplying. It was at that moment that I realized something terrifying. I wasn't the only inhabitant of my own mind. There was something in there acting on its own, making decisions without, consulting me, opening doors I swore I had locked. My mind, which should have been my safest refuge, had become hostile territory. Sei Shōnagon had a list for that too. Things that disturb the heart. She didn't use the word anxiety as we do today, but she described with surgical precision those moments when something internal breaks the peace without explanation. A memory that surfaces without context, a worry that settles in for no reason, a discomfort that has no identifiable origin. She wrote about waking up in the middle of the night with a heavy heart, about feeling a sudden unease during a ceremony, about how certain thoughts arrived, like unwanted visitors who don't respect proper schedules. What she was describing was the universal experience of realizing that your mind is not a completely governable space, that there are dark rooms inside that you don't control, basements that open on their own, shadows that move when you're not looking. The imperial court could be controlled with etiquette and protocol, but the interior? The interior remained wild. I used to think my thoughts were me, that every idea that crossed my mind was a conscious choice, a production authorized by the central department of my being. But anxiety taught me otherwise. It showed me that there's a mental factory working 24 hours a day, producing material I never ordered, thoughts about disasters that never happened, catastrophic scenarios that my brain assembles with the dedication of a disturbed filmmaker, edited and distorted memories that resurface at the worst moments. And the scariest thing, the more I try to shut down this factory, the more it works. The more I say, don't think about it, the more it becomes the only thing present. It's like living in a house where the lights turn on by themselves at 3 in the morning, where you hear footsteps in empty rooms, where the doors you close appear open the next day. You start to fear the place where you should feel safest. Shōnagon had a special sensitivity for describing this kind of inner discomfort. In one passage, she talks about how disturbing it is when your own heart acts against your better judgment. When you rationally know there's no reason to worry, but your chest tightens anyway. When you know that person doesn't deserve your attention, but your mind insists on revisiting every word of the conversation. When you know you should be sleeping, but your thoughts conspire to keep you awake, parading through impossible scenarios and fabricated worries. She understood that the mind can become a kind of internal insurgent, a rebellious force that works against our own interests. And the worst part, you can't simply evacuate that territory. You can't move out of your own head. You're stuck there, trying to negotiate with a part of yourself that doesn't seem interested in negotiations. What anxiety taught me, and what Shōnagon seemed to intuit 1,000 years ago, is that inhabiting one's own mind can be the most terrifying experience there is. Because if we can't trust our own inner territory, where exactly can we take refuge? I spent years trying to reclaim that territory, like a general trying to retake a rebellious province. I expended incalculable energy trying to police every thought, monitor every emotion, control every reaction. But the more I tried, the more hostile the territory became. The more I fought, the more the mind resisted. Until I realized something that Shōnagon perhaps knew intuitively, Perhaps the mind was never meant to be completely tamed. Perhaps it is by nature partly wild, partly autonomous, partly mysterious even to ourselves. And perhaps anxiety is just the alarm that goes off when we resist this uncomfortable truth, when we insist on treating our mind as private property that should obey us completely, when in fact it has always been a shared territory between our consciousness and forces we are barely beginning to understand. The collapse of personal order. I've always been a systems person. I have lists for everything: daily tasks, monthly goals, yearly plans. My desk is organized, my digital files follow a clear logic, even my morning routine has a specific sequence that gives me the illusion that I'm building something solid. This external order has always brought me a sense of security, as if by organizing the world around me, I was also organizing the world within me. But then, anxiety arrives, and in a matter of minutes, all. This carefully constructed architecture crumbles like a house of cards. It's not just that I feel uncomfortable. It's that I feel my own internal structure disintegrating. It's as if the self I've spent years building, with its routines, its certainties, its ways of dealing with the world, simply begins to crack, to give way, to collapse. And the panic comes not only from the discomfort, but from the terrifying realization that what I believed to be solid within me was, in fact, extremely fragile. Sei Shōnagon was obsessed with order. In her Pillow Book, she dedicates entire pages to describing the perfect arrangement of things, how screens should be positioned, how clothing colors should harmonize with the seasons, how words should be chosen for each occasion. For her, beauty was intrinsically linked to order, to balance, to the correct placement of each element in its proper place. But what makes her writing so profoundly human is that she also recorded the moments when this order broke down, when a ceremony was interrupted by an unforeseen event, when someone committed a social faux pas, when the seasons didn't behave as they should. And most importantly, when her own inner peace was disturbed for no apparent reason, when her emotions refused to follow the script she had written for herself. In these moments, she wasn't just describing social discomfort. She was documenting the collapse of personal order, that visceral feeling that the structure that keeps you functioning is falling apart. I've discovered that anxiety has a special relationship with people like me, people who depend on order to feel safe. Because for us, life isn't just an experience, it's a project that needs to make sense, have coherence, follow some logic. When I wake up in the morning and manage to follow my routine, when I manage to complete my tasks, when things happen according to plan, I feel like I'm building something. As if each day were a brick in the construction of a better version of myself. But when anxiety arrives, it doesn't just mess up my day, it questions the entire project. It makes me feel that this whole construction is useless, fragile, doomed to failure. It's as if I were building a house with obsessive care and suddenly realized that the foundation is on quicksand. Anxiety isn't just a passing symptom, it's an existential crisis disguised as physical discomfort. Shōnagon described with painful precision what happens when inner order collapses. In one passage, she talks about how unsettling it is when things are not in their proper places. And she wasn't just referring to physical objects. She describes the feeling when your own thoughts and emotions refuse to stay where you put them, when your worries invade moments that should be peaceful, when your sadness appears on occasions that should be joyful. What she was articulating was the experience of feeling architecturally flawed, of realizing that the internal structure you've built, your emotional defenses, your coping strategies, your control mechanisms, is simply not enough to keep chaos at bay. And what's most devastating is that the more urgently you try to rebuild that order, the more desperately you try to reorganize your emotions and thoughts, the more they spread and multiply. It's like trying to gather mercury with your hands. Each attempt only spreads the problem. What anxiety has taught me, brutally and repeatedly, is that I am not a project that can be completed. I am not a house that can be built and then simply inhabited in peace. I am a continuous process, a permanent construction that never achieves total stability. And this terrifies the part of me that wants to believe that if I just work hard enough, plan well enough, strive hard enough, I will eventually reach that state of permanent order where anxiety can no longer touch me. Shōnagon lived in one of the most ordered societies in human history, where every gesture had meaning and every moment had its proper place. But even there, even at the epicenter of external order, she knew that internal order was a constant negotiation, not a definitive achievement. The beauty she valued so much was not in perfect and permanent order. It was in the ability to recognize when order crumbled and yet find some form of grace in that collapse. Because if there is one thing anxiety has taught me, it is this: you can rebuild 1,000 times, and 1,000 times the structure will give way again. Peace is not about building something indestructible. It's about accepting that everything we build, including ourselves, is fundamentally, inevitably fragile. The tyranny of, should I wake up anxious and immediately think, I shouldn't be anxious right now. I'm dreading a meeting and I tell myself, I should be more confident. My heart races for no apparent reason and I whisper to myself, I should be able to control this. It's as if I carry an inner judge who never sleeps, never takes a vacation, never gives me the benefit of the doubt. And this judge has only one favorite word: should. I should be calmer. I should be more productive. I should be more present. I should. The problem is that this should never describes who I really am. It describes an idealized version of myself that exists only in my imagination, a version that never feels anxiety, never doubts, never fails. And the more I compare myself to this phantom version, the more I realize how far I fall short. Anxiety doesn't just come from fear of the outside world. It comes from this constant civil war between who I am and who I think I should be. Sei Shōnagon lived during the height of the Heian court, a period in Japanese history where social expectations were so precise that there were rules for absolutely everything. There was a correct way to sit, to speak, to look, to write a letter, to choose the color of a kimono according to the season. A single slip could ruin a reputation. She wrote about embarrassing things with a keen awareness that each social mistake was a small death. But what fascinates me is how she also recorded the internal tyranny that these expectations created. It wasn't just the fear of external judgment. It was the inner voice that constantly evaluated, criticized, and corrected. She describes moments when she felt inadequate for no objective reason, moments when she blamed herself for emotional reactions she couldn't control, moments when the distance between how she should behave and how she actually felt created an abyss of inadequacy. The imperial court had its external tyrants, but the internal tyrant was far worse because it never rested, never forgave, never forgot. I realized something devastating about should. It transforms everything you feel into evidence of failure. If you're anxious, you should be calm. If you're sad, you should be okay. If you're angry, you should be more zen. If you're tired, you should have more energy. Should is a perfect machine for creating inadequacy because it always points to an alternative reality where you are better, stronger, more in control. And anxiety loves that. It feeds on this distance between the real and the ideal. Every should is pure fuel for more anxiety because it makes me feel that my current state is unacceptable, that I need to be fixed, that there is something fundamentally wrong with me. And then the vicious cycle begins. I get anxious, I tell myself. I shouldn't be anxious. I get anxious about being anxious. I blame myself for not being able to control it. And the anxiety multiplies like a virus that replicates itself every time you try to fight it. Shōnagon had a fascinating list. Things that make you lose your composure. Among them were situations where you are caught unprepared, where your emotions leak out against your will, where you react in a way you consider inappropriate. What she was describing was the terror of failing to be who You should be. In court, this failure had immediate social consequences. But even without the court, even 1,000 years later, in a completely different world, I still feel that same terror. Because I have internalized my own impossible codes. I should always be balanced, always rational, always in control. And when I inevitably fail, because these standards are impossible, I don't think, well, I'm human. I think, I failed again. Shōnagon at least had the honesty to admit that these moments of loss of composure happen to everyone. I, on the other hand, act as if I'm the only one who can't meet the impossible standard I myself created. What I finally began to understand, after years of struggling, is that anxiety isn't the main problem. It's just a symptom. The real problem is this tyranny of should, this impossible demand that I completely control what by nature is partially uncontrollable. My thoughts arise without permission. My emotions have a will of their own. My body reacts before my mind decides. And I can spend the rest of my life hating myself for it, or I can finally recognize that I've built a standard that no human being could reach. Shōnagon lived in a society that elevated should to an art form. Yet she still had the courage to record all the moments when she couldn't live up to expectations. She didn't pretend to be perfect. She documented her flaws, her inadequacies, her human moments. Perhaps her greatest insight lies not in the lists of beautiful and ordered things, but in the confessions of when the order broke down and she allowed herself to simply be human. Because should only has power as long as I believe it's possible to be different from who I am. And the moment I accept that I am exactly this, anxious, imperfect, partially chaotic, the inner tyrant finally loses its power. Not because I became who I should be, but because I stopped believing that there is a should worth destroying myself to achieve. Accepting dance. Without choreography, I spent most of my life trying to choreograph every movement of my inner experience. I planned how I should feel in every situation, mentally rehearsed how I would react to different scenarios, created emotional scripts that I thought I should follow. And when life didn't follow my script, when anxiety appeared in the middle of a moment that should have been peaceful, when fear arose in situations I considered safe, when my mind simply refused to obey my direction, I panicked. Because for me, living was executing a perfect choreography, and any improvisation was failure. It took me years to realize something that Sei Shōnagon seems to have intuited 1,000 years ago. Life has never been a choreographed performance. It has always been an improvised dance, where you learn the steps as you move, where the rhythm changes without warning, where your partner, existence itself, sometimes pulls you in directions you didn't plan. And perhaps peace lies not in controlling every movement, but in learning to dance even when you don't know the next step. Sei Shōnagon was not a systematic philosopher offering definitive solutions. She was an observer who recorded life as it was, beautiful and chaotic, ordered and unpredictable, sometimes harmonious and often disconcerting. In her writings, she celebrates both moments of perfect order and those of enchanting imperfection. She writes about the beauty of an impeccably executed ceremony, but also about the charm of a child interrupting a solemn moment with their spontaneity. She appreciates the perfect arrangement of flowers, but also records how a gust of wind that disrupts everything can create a different, unplanned beauty. What she was practicing, without naming it, was a form of radical acceptance, the ability to appreciate both the scripted and the improvised, both control and chaos. She didn't pretend that order didn't matter. It clearly mattered to her. But she also didn't pretend that she could control everything. And in this tension between the desire for order and the acceptance of chaos, she found a way of living that didn't depend on winning the battle for total control. I always thought that making peace with anxiety meant eliminating it, that the ultimate goal was to reach a state where it simply no longer existed, where I was permanently calm, balanced, undisturbed. And every method I tried, meditation, therapy, breathing techniques, medication, I evaluated by the same criterion. Is this taking me closer to that anxiety-free state? And when the anxiety inevitably returned, I felt defeated, as if the whole journey had been in vain because I hadn't reached the promised destination. But slowly, painfully, I began to understand that I was asking the wrong question. The question was never, how do I eliminate anxiety? The question was always, how do I live well while anxiety is part of the landscape? It's like learning to dance with a partner who doesn't follow conventional rules, who sometimes pulls you abruptly, who changes the rhythm without warning. You can spend your whole life refusing to dance until they behave, or you can learn to move with them, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's not what you planned. Shōnagon had an expression I use often, mono no aware, an acute awareness of the impermanence of things, a sensitivity to the transient beauty of existence. She applied this to everything, to the changing seasons, to the wilting flowers, to the perfect moments that inevitably end, but also to her own emotions and inner states. She didn't treat her feelings as permanent things that needed to be fixed or eliminated. She observed them as she observed the seasons, arriving, staying for a while, departing, changing. This doesn't mean she didn't suffer. Her writings make it clear that she felt deeply. But she didn't add an extra layer of suffering by demanding that her feelings be different from what they were. She didn't fight with spring for not being summer. And gradually she stopped fighting with her emotions for not being what she thought they should be. That's the dance without choreography. You move with what is present, even when you would prefer it to be different. What finally freed me, or at least began to free me, wasn't controlling my anxiety, but completely changing my relationship with it. I stopped treating it as an invader that needs to be expelled and started treating it as an inconvenient but persistent part of my human experience. When it arrives now, I still don't like it. It's still uncomfortable. It's still difficult. But I no longer add that layer of panic on top of panic, that despair of, this shouldn't be happening. Sei Shōnagon had no control over court intrigues, over shifts in political favor, over the inevitable losses of life. But she had something more valuable, the ability to be present with all of that without needing it to be different. She danced with life as it was, not as it should be. And perhaps that's what peace truly means. Not the absence of chaos, not total control over every internal movement, but the ability to keep moving even when you don't know the next steps. Anxiety can lead sometimes. It can pull me in directions I didn't choose. But I'm still dancing. I'm still here, moving through it, learning to find some grace even in the clumsy steps. And perhaps, in the end, there's no difference between a perfect dance and a life well lived. Both happen not when you execute the choreography perfectly, but when you surrender to the movement, even without knowing where it will take you. If this video made you question your relationship with your own mind, leave a like and subscribe, because we're going to continue exploring these anxieties that Sei Shōnagon has known about for 1,000 years. See you next time.